For millions of people in India, owning a home, it's not just a transaction, is it? It's everything. It's the foundation of a life. But behind that dream is a massive financial engine. And believe me, it is on the verge of a huge, huge transformation. Okay, let's just start with the headline number. 1.5 trillion US dollars. That's the projected size of India's mortgage opportunity by 2035. And look, this isn't just some steady growth we're talking about. This is a seismic shift, a complete game changer for the country's economy. And it's all fueled by that one simple, powerful dream of owning a home. So, that 1.5 trillion sounds absolutely massive, right? But here's where it gets really interesting. When you put it in context, India's mortgage penetration is only about 11% of its GDP. I mean, just look at China, they're at almost 30%, and developed markets, they're way up over 50%. So what does that tell you? It tells you the room for growth, it's just enormous. We're talking about barely scratching the surface here. All right, so let's dig in. What's really driving this incredible opportunity? Because, it's not just about abstract numbers on a screen. It's about people. It's about these huge demographic shifts that are completely reshaping the country. Think about it. Every single year, millions and millions of people are moving from the countryside into cities, all looking for a better life. By 2030, we're talking about 40% of the entire population living in urban areas. This isn't a temporary blip. This is creating this incredible long-term demand for housing, and not just any housing, but affordable housing. And that demand, it's not going away for decades. Okay, so this massive demand naturally brings us to the main characters in this story. Because meeting this kind of need, it's not easy. It's not straightforward at all. And it's actually created this whole new breed of financial companies, specialists that are tailor-made for this exact challenge. So here's the big question, right? If there's so much money to be made, $1 trillion opportunity, why aren't the huge, well-known banks just swooping in and dominating the entire market? You'd think they would, but they don't. So, what's going on? And this slide right here shows you exactly why. It's all about their business models. See, big banks are like giant factories. They're built for high-volume, super-efficient assembly line lending. They love salaried customers with perfect credit histories. But these affordable housing finance companies, the HFCs, they're completely different. They're more like specialist craftsmen. They go after the customers that banks find too difficult, the self-employed, people with informal income. It's a high-touch model, meaning it takes a lot more hands-on work, and honestly, it's just not what the big banks are set up to do. So yeah, looking at this chart, you can see the banks still have the biggest piece of the pie overall. No surprise there. But that 25.5%, that slice that belongs to the housing finance companies, don't underestimate it. That is a deep, super specialized, and incredibly important niche. They're the ones reaching the customers everyone else leaves behind, and that makes them crucial. And it's not just us saying this. Listen to the chairman of Aadhar Housing Finance, D.S. Tripathi. He says, demand for affordable housing will endure for decades. He gets it. This isn't a fad. It's a long-term reality. And to succeed, you need a strategy that goes way beyond the big cities. Okay, so a market this massive doesn't exist in a bubble, right? There are these two giant forces shaping everything. Think of it like a push and a pull. On one side, you have the government, and they're pushing for growth as hard as they can. And on the other side, you have the central bank, the RBI, and they're pulling back on the reins to make sure things don't get out of control. So let's talk about the push first. The government is all in on this. They've got these huge flagship programs, like the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, PMAY for short. They're literally pumping up demand by giving people direct financial help and subsidizing their interest rates. This makes buying home a real possibility for millions of families who could never have afforded it before. But here's the thing. Whenever you get that much money flowing that fast, there's always a risk. Things can overheat. So that's where the pull comes in. The Reserve Bank of India, the country's central bank, is stepping in to put some guardrails in place to keep the whole system stable. So what are they actually doing? Well, in simple terms, the RBI is tightening the rules for how these housing finance companies get their money. They're basically saying you can't rely as much on public deposits anymore, and you need to keep more cash on hand. Now, the whole point is to make the system safer, which is good. But it also makes it more expensive for these companies to operate. It forces them to be a lot smarter and more careful with their finances. Okay, so we've got this huge demand on one hand, and this tricky new regulatory world on the other. But here's the twist. Even if a company gets all of that right, there's another, much older problem they have to solve to really unlock this market. And it has nothing to do with money. You're not going to believe this, but the biggest roadblock, the thing holding back this entire trillion-dollar industry, it's a 100-year-old problem, and it all boils down to a single piece of paper. So here's the problem in a nutshell. In India, when you buy a property, the government registers the sale, not the actual ownership title. This creates something called presumptive ownership. What does that mean? It means nobody is ever 100% sure who truly owns a piece of land. There's no single concrete proof. Now imagine you're a bank trying to lend someone money against that property. That uncertainty, it's a massive risk. It makes the whole process slow, expensive, and a legal minefield.
And this is where technology comes in to save the day. Because the only way you're going to fix a problem this old and this deep is with a serious tech overhaul. We're talking about a complete digital transformation. Just picture this for a second. The entire home loan process, completely digital. You apply online, no paperwork, and AI doesn't just look at your credit score. It looks at other things like your utility bills to figure out if you're a good risk, especially if you work in the informal economy. All the verification happens automatically. What's the end result? A loan process that's way faster, way cheaper, and opens the door for so many more people. Okay, that's great for the loan process. But what about that giant 100-year-old land title problem we just talked about? Well, the most exciting solution might actually come from a place you'd never expect, the world of cryptocurrency. I'm talking about blockchain. All right, let's pull all of this together. We've talked about huge demand, new rules, old problems, and cool new tech. So what does the future actually look like? How do all these pieces fit together to build India's housing future? It really comes down to this. The companies that win are going to be the ones who can nail 4 key things. First, they need to figure out how to reach customers in the smaller towns and cities. Second, they have to get really good at using new kinds of data to figure out who to lend to. Third, they absolutely must use AI and analytics to make their whole operations super efficient. And finally, they need to offer flexible loan options to help people out when times get tough. And let's be clear, the stakes here are absolutely massive. Just listen to Manish Jaiswal, the CEO of Grihum Housing Finance. He says the market could hit 50 lakh crore rupees in just a few years. Why does that matter? Because this isn't just about housing. A healthy housing market is like rocket fuel for the entire Indian economy. So at the end of the day, what we've been talking about here, it's so much more than just balance sheets and interest rates, isn't it? Figuring out this affordable housing puzzle, it's about building a better, fairer, more stable society for hundreds of millions of people. It's truly foundational. And that leaves us with one last big question. All the pieces seem to be in place, right? You've got this incredible demand, you've got game-changing technology, and you've got a real push from the very top. This trillion-dollar quest for an Indian home is well and truly on. The only question left is, can they finally build a home for all?